Only other for me wakwa bra mani me pese me no di nkomo quick one bi e wo ha na ye de fa adwene na yesua de kakra efirimu. Now me no pese me no di nkomo fa rent card ho ma ye videos be about rent card na na de na me ye no eye adesua de na me pese me no esua. Question me bisa ne say emra ni mu no emra ne share landlord say onkoto rent card from rent control as a compulsory measure as something that is non-negotiable. And if that is the case, me pese rent control for so mu team no munya me video ya. Omumra bontin be ansa me say. Emra we e share landlord kitikin say nante bra rent control na better rent card na yema receipt na yema receipt. Na omusa ma emra e mo kwan to increase the rent on their own without parliamentary approval. Because enkomebu wa ebobo ba ye babedi na eye very serious ye bedi so but and then me limit you to emra ben na e share landlord say chinchina da chin untimi issue rent card bia just rent control for printing ko emra ben na tisa omoma esa ansa maye ni yehunu so untimi ansa dia ene na question mark won sem bebira rent commissioner agina simpie so aka agina fidie so aka say uni rent card and as a rent card na say obama so ya omonhwa. So the question now is ama pressure basa obia say obia ko rent control na okoto rent card sa na omoka no na sa na mra ne kan na emra ben ene kasa omo mekirekire mu na yenhunu because yentena se enye te say yennim na mra ne kikire yen a yaka say ignorance of the law is not an excuse. So we don't want that excuse into omo ma yen answer no. When they become transparent in their conversation and giving us the feedback we will also understand to work with the rent control. Both parties have to be transparent and responsible, and both parties have to own up to their responsibility under the law. And no come on, I'm a person me know a and I pay and I yedi. The other kind of say the obligation of who is supposed to issue rent card no a landlord, because landlord is responsible of issuing a rent card to the tenant, and any tenant and as a corporate a rent card the chair coin tenant any can say or the rent card deba a landlord in the deba no the biama tenant no etu here mranimua according to the Rent Act 1963 at 220 section 29 was say every landlord of a premises on a monthly or shorter tenancy must issue the tenant a rent card within 7 days after the tenancy starts. The rent card must contain landlord's name and address, tenant name and address, and recoverable rent. If any detail changes, the landlord must collect the rent card and update it within 7 days. This is what the law says. One can rent control same room. One can say koto rent card will rent control. And we are asking this question: rent control should show us that law. Air Force landlord say wa ma rent card or rent control enhwe no me pa so yedi nkomo ye pese esua de rent control mlabontin. We are questioning the rent control on these things because some of the things are commissioner na kano onam na utie na hwa it look as if say the commissioner is talking from his own imagination and not what the law is saying. Of course, you need to fit in rent control and a printed rent card no moton bima landlord, but I am rana. Because I know say the reason why rent control for me printing rent card turn is because omona landlord and tenant na call more for more how. And so they are more like part of the solution. And to say landlord into me print rent card and I own your rent card now call rent control more turn be mana and your money. I'm not saying say and yamra so because I'm so and saying see rent control can say or beton. But the point is whereby rent control money compulsory and medical look like this say yamra. So rent control cost rent card now. Then there's an issue, and they have to prove to us. Say so Emranaka say chinchina landlord Emrameto rent card or rent control for one now. And that's what I want us to establish and ask them to come and give us that article, that bill, that law now, ya pass ya landlord say Omer rent control emeton and I say emeto rent card. Now, seminu muvuko na say seminu you realize say say CM Pemprian said me no can obi apeso koto rent card a rent control to the extent say they are telling us say there are some security features more rent card ni mu and then they are accepted. Is that in the law? Which parliament, which session, which parliament cropping and the same run say rent card must have certain security features. Rent control for 1 year and sana ya jet say rent card. They should come and tell us. Because I believe that the rent control is abusing some of the law because it feel like omune in charge of the law. Okay, in the 1983 rent control, 1986 rent control law, 1986 rent control law, PNDCL law 138, or say a landlords are required to register tenancy or lease agreement with the Rent and Housing Committee and provide details, tenant details and actual rent being paid. So these things, as we are saying, it's also in that rent law 138. Any just the 1963 act, a sign of PNDCL law 138. Landlord say, as I said, we provide the rent card at the man with tenant within 7 days. Corona. But the point I hear Bisa Ohane say, ain't so? Say landlord echo rent control. Nasel Okita rent card. Containing landlord needing an address, tenant needing an address, recoverable rent, no any prescribed particulars. Mrana cano pepe. Does the rent control have the right to deny or refuse acceptance of that rent card? Because the minimum say rent card ne kra no any rent control ne kipu. Wo landlord no utomi enu pay. Na wa ma tenant na back na wa for back. Na when they say na shim, so the tenants also have that records on any side. And our landlords no will be. Eti copy kra rent control. And so if I have a rent card, whether printed by the rent control or not, na say medical rent control, does the rent control have that law that back them to reject that rent card? Nana, is there any amendment in the law? And now ruling the across war Supreme Court or near Appeal Court or High Court? Say any rent control for won't mean any issue a rent card be to fulfill that requirement of landlord. Nana, they should come and tell us. Omuma yengu, so landlord will know how to deal with these rent card issues. Because of him, say the Medicare canon. Section 20 and a can about rent card and then the rent control law 1986 PNDCL law 138 and also section 5 ekasa efa sa rent card ya ho and any 1963 the difference bia and sheda nyeden enim the difference in say the 19 PNDCL law 138 I refer to certain kind of properties. My description of the property the law was made for. Now my question here is that Obibeka say fees and charges nimu. Fine, no doubt. In the Fees and Charges Act, that's the Miscellaneous Act, or state say rent card printed by the department, rent card printed by the department, and one amount of omunfanje. They never said in the rent control Fees and Charges Act, the Fees and Charges Act never said say the rent control should be the only one printing this card and selling it. My Fees and Charges Act the amendment one there's no place say the rent control and kwan no right say obe print rent card. But wama ho kwan because rent control mudumade no e ka ho bi. They can print and sell to landlord that won't mean print with their now be. But I have not seen where it say wo landlord no as an independent landlord na wa mnalaka just the issue that rent card nema tenant no won't mean print bi. Minya hu bi. Ebi wo ho a mesramo moma ye hu. Because the fees and charges no there in case rent commissioner no and as a rent control for so omo print card na said you musin ton. But the last fees and charges act rent control we ni wo mu no me saka copy minim near 2022 there no, and in the 2022 there no was rent card near 6 cities say you turn rent card ni saying. And so that bring me to my next question. Say 25 cities now rent control for J landlord for no, is it approved by parliament? If it's not approved by parliament, then landlord for much year because you are being abused. Rent control for a boom say parliament in passe samrano for them to take the 25 cities now. And so I believe say these charges have to be challenged in the law court. As I say the court law court and I say the petition court parliament and finding out if the parliament have given approval say rent control bet me charge 25 cities for rent card and these are legitimate questions because my landlord in Tunibuom, but what to boom, bona what to munusono, there is no approved charge from parliament amendment. Be actually say parliament at said the 25 city for rent card. The only amendment fees and charges at the actually say a 6 cities. So where from that 25 cedis we are asking the rent control commissioner? Oh my answer. Because the landlord into me 29 boom now person to some tenant. Also remember two charges are parliament next or passing now parliament in pass your own team for pay as rent commissioner and two just like that. Yes sir. Why we see for now say hypocrite because why will you tell somebody to reduce on any renter or this can make a crown here? But you come to the office and something that have to be passed by parliament, you go ahead and implement it without parliament. These are the questions you're asking. I'm not saying it's sanity, but I'm just asking, say, or mama who evidence they crash that bill no a call parliament approve who say the rent control can charge 25 cedi for rent card. These are legitimate questions, and I don't think that's again here no. Asking these questions, no, etiamra, no. And I'm not saying say what they are doing is not lawful. No. What I'm saying is that if it is lawful, they should provide the source, the backing, the liquor backing. And mom say to me no to charge 25 cedi for rent card, which the last amendment which is the 2022 bill no rent fees and charges act no actually say 6 cedi less for that rent card. And so and the question me di chat on na sorry so and he say rent control for one parliament in the court judicial system so now all landlord for who say landlord printing the rent card now the man tenant say be keep the record on one keti say record no tenant benya copy omunya sign paper etiamra na say etiamra dia then rent control commissioner cannot say wa mo ameto rent card abo mo who can some mutie dabi eba ne say he is abusing the law and he is giving unfair treatment to landlords. Etimi so ye landlord fa comment tum na onwane the landlord association amesro se kodwane association no because these are some of the things the association want to put all landlords together. Na omofo petition komisa aban ene wona okabi ewom say so emra ne de kan yina no ene wa we are seeing you know yenim say changes say but how is that changes going? What is the law even saying? Landlord don't understand, and so that is why the implementation of the law has become difficult. It is a President Mahama percent marani aduma ye dia yentutu niema ye. Lastly, I will be doing another video on the rent and housing committee because anyhow and no can who be pan and marani bebre enya aduma up to date because I believe say most of the things that needs to be done by this rent and housing committee no rent control person of Canada but marano man kwan a bit say registering of tenancy agreements. Minya humra no ba bia wo say wo ma rent control formula no mo meka nkire me na me hunu na landlord for nso hunu because the only place which is the PNDCL 138 no ka say say wo do lease no tenancy agreement e come the rent and housing committee. So who are they? Where are they? We don't know. So they should come and find out. So I'm going to do a video on that and I explain to you who are they and why I believe say say mra no government asudie no the responsibility of government have to be implemented so that the landlord will now be able to follow the law. Because we mra na eniama bia ehiama mra ni sipi wo aban no anye na we blame landlord say landlord ni mra ni so then I don't know what you are talking about because you the government is not even obeying the law. And I've given you example in this video that we need clarification on until the rent control should come out and tell us these things. Abusia me mama kasa nwa me de besi ya na ma show say o pese o ye landlord now join the landlord association na landlord for mutimi ma nkabomu ba because I know say tenant for there e wo mu code da na ye ntena se na ye ni nkomo ma ha we suntwa na ya ye han dan ye honto ye mo awsa mo de dan ma han mo so mo honto mo de a and na ma say visit ghlandlords.com na join the landlords association said ye be ya landlord for etu na mo also betu bi na also do anu disem aba ama aboa na omanga na tumpon me da se ha na me de usi da se na ye be se ahia